Hello, my friend, and welcome to the study. I've made a small little fruity treat, citrus, mini oranges for us. And as it is spring, today I'm theming this video blue, but not only blue. The blue of the ocean waves. Does that sound like water? It's a lovely sound. And this one is a print by Utagawa Hiroshige, who lived from 1757 to 1858. And we'll be looking at these views of Mount Fuji in print, namely the wave of Kanagawa, as we unbox a new set of bridge cards. But first, if we're going to play cards, I think that we should make a little drink. And to go with our blue theme of spring and waves of air and water, I think we shall make a Mistral. There are several recipes for Mistral. And of course the particular one that I've picked uses the blue Curacao liqueur. Curacao bleu. Bleu. Has an orange flavor and a very blue color. And this calls for champagne, but as I'm not going to drink an entire bottle myself, we're going to use a small mini bottle of Prosecco, which works just as well for most cocktails. So let's make a Mistral. And while I mix this, I will tell you about the name. The Mistral is a strong, cold, northwesterly wind that blows from southern France into the Gulf of Lyon in the northwestern Mediterranean. It produces sustained winds, often exceeding 66 kilometers per hour, or 36 knots. It is most common in the winter and the spring, and strongest in the transition between the two seasons. It passes through the valleys of the Rhône and the Durance rivers to the coast of the Mediterranean, around the Camargue region. It affects the northeast of the plain of Languedoc and Provence, to the east of Toulon, where it is felt as a strong west wind. It has a major influence all along the Mediterranean coast of France, and often causes sudden storms between Corsica and the Balearic Islands. The name Mistral comes from the Occitan of the Languedoc region, magistral in Maltese, or magisterial or masterly in English. It lasts several days and sometimes even more than a week. A mistral happens when there is an anticyclone or northern hemisphere high pressure area over the Bay of Biscay, and simultaneously an area of low pressure around the Gulf of Genoa off the west coast of Italy. The flow of air between the high and low pressure areas draws a current of cold air from the north that accelerates through the lower elevations between the foothills of the Alps and the Cevennes. The mistral happens even more easily when a cold, rainy front has crossed France from the northwest to the southeast as far as the Mediterranean. This cold, dry wind usually causes a period of cloudless skies and luminous sunshine, which gives the mistral its reputation for making the sky especially clear. The long, enclosed shape of the Rhône Valley and the Venturi effect of funneling air through a narrow space is frequently cited as the reason for the speed and force of the mistral, which reaches its maximum speed where the valley widens. This wind occurs not only in the valley, but high above in the atmosphere, up to the troposphere, 3 kilometers above Earth. And there we have our mistral. You can see the blue and the bubbles. And it tastes a little orangey and fizzy, just like our mistral wind. So let's open our cards. And here we can see the Great Wave and Hokusai. This is the name the artist used and for which he became most famous when he published his views of Mount Fuji. It's a beautiful, evocative print with the innovative at the time and dominant color of indigo. Now today we've got not the mistral here in the southern UK, but we do have some jets, some military jets on maneuvers that you might hear from time to time. You can hear the whoosh, whoosh, because there's been some activity in British airspace recently, and the military is being very prepared. But we can imagine that it's the sound of these waves in the ocean. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The cover is somewhat misleading, but we'll open the card cards and see. This is by an Austrian company, Piquet, made in Vienna. And these are some other prints by Hokusai that will be on the cards. So let's see if we can open this and have some nice sounds for you. I don't notice until I do these videos what a beating my hands have taken over the years with the water sports that I do. So I hope you don't mind the way they look. The bridge cards, so we'll have 2 decks of bridge cards there. But you know, we can play Piquet with them too, if there's only 2 of us. I do enjoy playing Piquet with you. They're very slippery. And we have a waterfall print there. Some people in the foreground. And up here. What do you think of that print? Does it look like it kind of influenced Tolkien when he drew his Rivendell in The Lord of the Rings? Let's see what the face cards look like. Very standard, nothing fancy, yet a little bit varied for each suit. The standard bridge deck there. And there's another print. 2 men trying to get their horse across a flowing river, a fast flowing river. I don't normally like plastic because I've seen what it does to sea creatures, but it does make some nice sounds. as long as I dispose of it responsibly. And there's a certain anticipation when you hear the crackling of plastic, as evidenced by the behavior of my collie dog. Look at this beautiful print. Whoosh, whoosh, the flowing river, and the horse behaving exactly as you would expect a horse to behave. There's our horse and rider for Piquet, Vienna. He's wearing the uniform of a jockey, but when I think of horses and Vienna, I always think of the Spanish riding school and the beautiful white Lipizzan stallions. And there's our new bridge decks. And our Mistral. Can you see the wave? Whoosh. Kanagawa Oki Namiura, or Under the Wave of Kanagawa, often called the Great Wave, is a woodblock print in the Japanese style of ukiyo-e, or floating world, by artist Katsushika Hokusai, created in late 1831 during the Edo period in Japan. In this print we can see 3 boats moving through a storm-tossed sea, with a large wave forming a spiral in the center, and Mount Fuji visible in the background, almost like a triangle in the center. It is Hokusai's best known work, and the first in his series 36 Views of Mount Fuji. It is a synthesis of traditional Japanese printmaking and use of graphical perspective that was developed in Europe. It earned him immediate success in Japan and later in Europe and the rest of the world, where Hokusai's art inspired works by the soon-to-be Impressionist school. Several museums throughout the world hold copies of this wave of Kanagawa. Many of these came from 19th century private collections of Japanese prints. It is possibly the most reproduced image in the history of all art, and the most famous artwork in Japanese history. It has, in its short lifetime, influenced several notable artists and musicians alike, including Vincent van Gogh, Claude Debussy, Claude Monet, and Hiroshige. Katsushika Hokusai was born in Katsushika, Japan, in 1760, in Edo, or modern Tokyo. He began painting when he was 6 years old, and when he was a teenager he worked in a bookstore, and then as an apprentice engraver. He remained there for 3 years and began to create his own illustrations Then he entered the studio of Katsukawa Shunsho, one of the greatest ukiyo-e artists of his time. Hokusai studied Japanese and Chinese styles, as well as some Dutch and French paintings on his own. By 1800, he published famous views of the eastern capital and 8 views of Edo. It was at this time that he began to accept students and to use the name Hokusai, one of many names he would use in his career. Hokusai died in 1849 at the age of 89. During his lifetime, Hokusai produced thousands of images and made ukiyo-e, or floating world prints, popular in the Edo period, which spanned from 1603 to 1868. He depicted landscapes rather than the traditional pictures of courtesans and actors. And by the 1820s, when he published 36 views of Mount Fuji, it became so popular that he later added 10 more prints to the series. The Great Wave of Kanagawa is composed largely of 3 elements: a stormy sea, 3 boats, and the mountain. We can see the artist's signature in the upper left-hand corner. The dark hues surrounding Mount Fuji shows that the painting is set in the early morning, with the sun rising from the viewer's vantage point and beginning to illuminate the snowy peak. There are 3 oshiokuri bune, or fast barges. These were used to transport live fish to markets in Edo Bay. Each boat has 8 rowers and 2 relief crew members at the bow. And the size of this wave, relative to the boats, can be approximated to between 10 and 12 meters. The shape of this wave that spreads out and dominates the entire scene before falling forms the center of this composition. At the point the wave falls, it forms a perfect spiral with its center passing through the middle of the design, allowing viewers to see Mount Fuji in the background. The entire image is made up of curves, large and small, with the water's surface being an extension of the curves inside the waves. The foam curves generate other curves, which are divided into many small waves that repeat the image of the larger one, like claws. It has been seen as monstrous or ghostly, like a white skeleton threatening the fisherman with its foam. This gives way to Japanese fantasy supernatural themes, and the silhouette of the wave resembles that of a dragon. We can see the splashing water and the foam flying, resembling snow as it bombards the boatman. Inevitably, the wave attracts our attention, creating an immediacy of experience. When we consider the size of these boats and the height of the wave, we see almost fantastical forces at work, powerful nature, but also something that evokes the Japanese themes of the supernatural. The low water level viewpoint from which we are looking at the events augments the effect of the height of the wave. The smaller wave appearing in front of the great wave somewhat undermines this looming threat that it poses. There is a strong contrast between the background and the foreground, and the violence of this great wave contrasts with the serenity of this empty background. We see man, powerless, struggling between these two. This might be a reference to a Buddhist teaching in which man-made things are ephemeral, and the boats that are man-made will be swept away by this giant water wave. We can also see Shintoism, the omnipotence of nature. The interpretation of this painting is as Japanese writing, from right to left. In this way, the danger that is posed by the enormous wave is emphasized. The first 10 prints of Hokusai's series, including Under the Wave of Kanagawa, are among the first Japanese prints to feature Prussian blue. During the 1830s, Hokusai's prints underwent a blue revolution in which he made extensive use of this dark blue pigment. He used this shade of blue for the great wave rather than indigo, the traditional but delicate and quickly fading shade commonly used in ukiyo-e works at the time. Prussian blue, which is known in Japanese as berorin-ai, was imported from Holland beginning in 1820 and was used extensively after its arrival in Japan in large quantities in 1829. After the 1868 Meiji Restoration, Japan ended a long period of isolation and opened to imports from the West. In turn, much of Japanese art was exported to Europe and America and quickly gained popularity. The influence of Japanese art on Western culture, known as Japonisme, woodblock prints inspired Western artists in many genres, particularly, as we have noted, the Impressionists. We can see the influence of the great wave of Kanagawa in Vincent van Gogh's Starry Night, with his blue tints and wave shapes, and in Rainer Maria Rilke's Der Berg. Claude Debussy, who loved the sea and composed La Mer, loved also painted images of the Far East, and indeed kept a copy of the Great Wave of Kanagawa in his studio. During his work on La Mer, he was inspired so much by this print that he asked for this image to be used on the cover of the original 1905 score. Claude Monet acquired 250 Japanese prints, including 23 by Hokusai, which covered the walls of his house in Giverny. His garden there is even modelled after a Japanese print. Other artists were influenced by Hokusai's human forms, such as Edgar Degas who was especially influenced by his thousands of sketches of fish, sumo wrestlers, geisha, and everyday city dwellers in his depictions of fin de siècle Paris. Shall we play a hand of Piquet? I've got a scorecard here. Put that there. So we'll do one hand and see how we go. Which deck shall we use? The waterfall. I'm leaning towards the horse today. Horse is a bit stubborn, but maybe also just considering it doesn't want to cross. Maybe it's like spring, not sure if it wants to arrive just yet. So this will be as our bridge scoring card. Quite convenient. And we'll leave that aside with the jokers and go down to 7 in each suit. We've got clubs and spades and hearts, and we're missing our diamonds. There we are. And that's our picture I'll put there so we can see the waterfall coming down from our blue drink. I'll shuffle these and try not to get them too marked, because it's funny playing bridge with a Piquet deck, because anything that's marked, you know it's 7 and above, which can be kind of hilarious if you're playing with people who aren't overly serious. I like playing cards or chess at the end of a busy day or a busy week. And it's relaxing. You can just think about what you're doing. In the case of cards, you don't have to think quite so much as with chess. Chess, you don't even have to talk if you don't want to. Cards, you can have casual conversation about things. A relaxing pastime. Alright. They're very slippery. I like the new cards when they're slippery. Let's have a look at your hand first. We'll need to make some room. So moving our Mistral a little bit. The card there. You've got an ace, which looks nice. Oh, not a bad hand at all. Let's start with hearts, because in Piquet the order of suits doesn't matter. And since you are the elder hand, you can trade whatever you like. So remember, you're going for both points in declarations, and you're going for taking tricks. Trying to put those there, and we have a couple of jacks there. Alright, so we have 2 points of 4, and this one looks best with ace, king, queen. We've got a little bit of a sequence. King and a jack, an ace and a jack, not too bad. You can trade as many as 5 cards. So I think first we'll get rid of that one and that one. And these two could potentially get rid of that one too, but we've got 3 jacks for a potential set there. So we'll get rid of 4, which means you can take 1, 2, 3, 4, and this one goes to me. So I don't know if it's a good trade, but we made a good effort. So we have 9, 10, jack at any rate, and jack, king, queen. So that's not too bad there. Came off alright, I think. Alright. Let's look at my hand. Very similar. So I have an ace, 97, and king there. This looks like it will be my strongest suit. Put the trading cards there, the clubs, and a 10 and a jack. So I'm going to choose to keep those together and trade. I've got 2 10s. I think I'll trade both of those for 4. So I'll trade all 4. And look at that. We've got another ace, which makes the clubs a very good sequence. Inconsequential diamond and spade, and a king and a queen of hearts. So now we start our declarations. If I can put everything in the frame here. There are those. These. And that. And there's our scorecard. So as player A, the elder hand, you can declare a point of 4 in your diamond suit. But I beat that with a point of 5 in clubs. So that's 5 written down for the younger hand. Your next declaration will be a sequence. And your sequence is queen, king, ace, or jack, queen, king. You want to pick the highest, so you say a sequence of 3. And I have a sequence of 3 as well. How high? Ace, ace. So they cancel each other out and no one gets points for that sequence. Next declaration is a set. So you start by declaring that you have 3 or more of something. And it looks like the only thing we can declare are 3 jacks. Can I beat that with 3 of something higher or 4 of something? That is a 10 or higher. So you get the points for 3 jacks, a trio. There we are. There's no peak, which means someone will have scored 60 at this point. So we start play with let's start with your longest set. Diamonds. That's 1 for you. 2. 3. 4. And we'll go with. So you know I must have 2 aces as well. So fishing out my ace early is always a possibility. You know that I've got the ace, king and queen of the clubs, so that's not a winning suit. So what we can do is start out by fishing out one of the high hearts. So that's going to be 1 for me. And that's 5 for you, because it's your 5th card. And now I'll put out my spades. We'll go with ace, 2. And now we'll go with the long suit, 3. 4. 5. 6. 2 cards that I know will probably lose, so it doesn't matter which one I play. So I'll play 7, and that's 6 for you, and 7, and 8 for taking the last trick. So I had 7 and you had 8, and then we just add up our points. There's no repeat. So we total 11 for the elder hand and 12 for the younger hand. But elder hand gets 10 extra points for scoring higher on tricks. So elder hand, that's you, wins 21 to 12. So thank you, my friend, for spending this time opening a new packet of cards and looking at Japanese prints, having a little drink, and listening to waves go whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Be good to yourself, be kind to others, and be